At every family dinner, Ayla sat alone in a corner. While the rest of the family enjoyed their food on shiny gold-trimmed plates, they pushed cheap plastic dishes in front of her. They didn't hide their hatred. They called her unclean. They whispered behind her back, saying she didn't belong with them. Every bite she took felt heavy with shame, and every laugh they shared felt like a slap to her face. She looked at her husband, hoping he would stop them, but he stayed silent, letting the insults continue. Night after night, they repeated this cruel game, making sure Ayla knew she was different and unwanted. But one night, everything changed. As they once again shoved the plastic plate toward her and laughed, something inside Ayla broke. She could no longer swallow the pain they served her along with the food. She stood up, her hands shaking but her heart firm. Her eyes, once filled with tears, now burned with a new fire. The room fell silent, their laughter dying on their lips as they watched her. No one expected Ayla, the quiet girl they always bullied, to rise like this, but she did. And what she did next made the whole town talk. That night was the start of something they could never have imagined. Ayla grew up in a small but happy home. Her parents didn't have much, but they gave her love, respect, and warmth. Every day in her parents' house felt safe and full of smiles. So when Koa came into her life and asked to marry her, Ayla believed her happiness would only grow. She dreamed of building a beautiful life with him, filled with love and laughter. She thought she was stepping into a new chapter of joy. But from the very first day she entered Koa's family mansion, her dreams started to break. The big, fancy house looked beautiful from the outside, but inside it felt cold and cruel. Instead of welcoming her with open arms, Koa's family looked at her with disgust. They whispered behind her back, judged her every move, and treated her like a stranger. The love Ayla hoped for turned into pain. They didn't even try to hide their hatred. Every small thing she did became a reason for them to mock her. Day by day, they took away her confidence, her smile, and her peace. She felt like she was living in a golden cage where every corner reminded her that she didn't belong. Even Koa, the man who once promised to protect her, stood quietly as his family tore her down. Ayla's heart, which once danced with dreams, now felt heavy with sadness. The girl who came from a house filled with love now found herself trapped in a place where every word, every glance, and every action was meant to humiliate her, and slowly they stripped away her dignity, piece by piece, leaving her feeling empty and broken inside. The first family dinner was supposed to be special for Ayla. She had dressed up nicely, hoping to finally feel like part of Koa's family. She walked into the big dining room with a little smile, ready to sit and eat with everyone. But as she stepped closer to the table, she noticed something strange. While everyone else had shiny gold-trimmed plates and beautiful silver spoons, there was a small, cheap plastic plate set aside on a corner table. Next to it, plastic spoons and forks that looked like they belonged at a child's party, not in a rich family's home. And that seat, it was pushed far away from the main table, almost as if they didn't want her near them. Ayla stood there, confused and embarrassed. Her cheeks turned red as everyone's eyes fell on her. She looked at Koa, hoping he would call her to sit beside him, but he looked down, avoiding her gaze. Her heart started to beat fast, a bad feeling growing inside her. Then, her mother-in-law, with a cold smile on her face, spoke loudly. "It's for hygiene, dear. You'll eat there." The words hit Ayla like a slap. Hygiene? Did they think she was dirty? She felt her stomach turn, and for a second she wanted to run away. But she forced her legs to move and sat down at the lonely seat, far from the laughter and chatter at the main table. As she picked up the plastic spoon with shaking hands, tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. She didn't want to cry in front of them. That night, every bite of food tasted bitter. Her ears caught their soft whispers and hidden laughs, and each word cut deep into her heart. Ayla felt like a shadow in that big, bright room. That was the moment her heart cracked for the first time. The girl who once believed in love and family now felt small, unwanted, and ashamed. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of more pain to come. As Ayla sat there, her face burning with shame, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She slowly turned her eyes toward Koa, her husband, the man who had promised to love and protect her. In her heart, she still hoped he would stand up and say something, just one word to stop the humiliation. Just one word to make her feel like she belonged. She looked at him, her eyes silently begging for help. But Koa didn't even meet her gaze. He kept his head down, pretending to focus on his food. His hands moved, but his face stayed blank, cold, distant. Ayla's heart dropped. The pain she felt at that moment was sharper than any insult. She could handle the cruel words from his family. She could swallow the humiliation of eating alone. But Koa's silence, that silence cut through her soul. She wanted to scream, to ask him why he was letting this happen, but her voice got stuck in her throat. She watched him laugh softly at his mother's joke, acting like nothing was wrong, while she sat like an outsider in the same room. She remembered how, before marriage, Koa had spoken sweet words, telling her that his family would love her, that he would always be by her side. But now, all those promises felt like lies. In that long, painful silence, Ayla felt something inside her break. It wasn't just about plates or seats anymore. It was about knowing that the one person she trusted had abandoned her in front of everyone. Her hands trembled as she forced herself to eat, pretending not to care. But deep inside, tears filled her heart. Koa's silence was louder than the laughter echoing in the room. It screamed that she was alone, truly alone. She felt like a stranger sitting among people who secretly enjoyed watching her pain. And when she stole another glance at Koa, hoping he might change his mind, he simply looked away again, avoiding her like she didn't even exist. That was the moment Ayla understood the bitter truth. She had no one in that house, no support, no love. The man who was supposed to fight for her had chosen to stay quiet to keep peace with his family. And in that silence, Ayla's heart shattered into pieces. She lowered her eyes, swallowed her tears, and kept eating. But inside, she was screaming. It was the kind of betrayal that words couldn't fix. And from that day, a small fire of pain and anger began to grow in her heart, slowly turning into something stronger. Every night, when the big house grew quiet and everyone else was asleep, Ayla lay on her side in the cold bed, tears slipping down her face. She cried softly, afraid someone might hear her. She missed her parents so much, their small but happy home, where laughter filled every corner. She remembered how her mother would call her my sunshine, and her father would joke just to see her smile. But now, here she was, trapped in a place where no one smiled at her, unless it was to mock her. The warmth she once knew felt like a distant dream. As she cried, Ayla kept asking herself, how did I end up here? How did love bring me to this pain? She thought about the promises Koa had made before marriage, the sweet words that turned out to be empty. And with every tear that touched her pillow, her heart felt heavier. But something else was happening too, something small but powerful. Deep inside, with each painful memory and every insult she suffered, a new feeling began to grow. At first, it was just a tiny spark, but night after night, as the tears kept falling, that spark grew brighter. Ayla started to whisper to herself in the dark, I won't live like this forever. I won't let them break me. She began to see that waiting for Koa to defend her was useless. If she wanted freedom, she would have to take it herself. Slowly, her mind shifted from feeling helpless to thinking about escape. During the day, she still smiled weakly and obeyed their cruel rules. But at night, her heart was making plans. She pictured herself walking away from the mansion with her head high, never looking back. She imagined starting over, building a life where no one would dare treat her like trash again. Her tears continued, but now they were mixed with anger and determination. The more they tried to crush her spirit, the stronger the fire inside her burned. She thought about the women who had been through worse and still found a way to rise. She wanted to be one of them. Ayla started paying attention, noticing things like job ads in magazines and women in her town who ran their own businesses. Each little thing added fuel to her growing dream. She didn't have a plan yet, but the decision was made. One day, she would leave this cage. She would wipe her tears for the last time and show them that the woman they tried to break was unbreakable. And as she lay awake in the dark, her face still wet with tears, she finally felt something new, hope. The kind of hope that no insult, no silence, and no cruelty could destroy. Ayla was no longer just crying, she was preparing. The day of the big family party started like any other bad day for Ayla, but she didn't know this would be the day everything changed. The mansion was full of people, rich guests dressed in fine clothes, laughter filling the air, and the smell of expensive food everywhere. Ayla, dressed in simple clothes, tried to help in the kitchen like she always did. But when she reached out to carry the food trays to the guests, her mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the air. In front of everyone, she snapped, "No, you are not worthy to serve our guests. Step back." Everyone turned to look at Ayla, and the room fell silent for a moment before whispers and giggles began. Ayla felt her face burn with shame. She looked around, hoping Koa would say something, would stop this. But as always, he looked away, pretending not to see. Her heart felt like it was breaking into pieces, but that wasn't the end. As the guests sat down to enjoy the feast, her mother-in-law ordered Ayla to go and wash the dishes in the back. Loud enough so everyone could hear, she added, "That's the only thing you are good for." Some guests chuckled, others just looked away, pretending they didn't hear. Ayla's hands trembled, but she obeyed, walking to the kitchen with her head down as tears stung her eyes. As she scrubbed the plates alone, hearing the sounds of music and laughter from the party, something inside her shifted. The pain that had been quietly building for so long finally exploded. She remembered all the nights she cried, all the times she swallowed her pride, all the cruel words and cold looks. And suddenly, the tears stopped. Instead of sadness, a deep, burning anger filled her chest. She looked at her wet, soapy hands and clenched them into fists. "No more," she whispered to herself. "Never again." That night, after the guests left and the house grew quiet, Ayla didn't cry like she usually did. She sat in the dark, her heart pounding with a new kind of strength. She realized they didn't just see her as less. They wanted her to believe she was less. But she wasn't. Not anymore. That public humiliation, meant to crush her, had done the opposite. It had woken up the fighter inside her. She wiped her face and stood up straight for the first time in a long while. She made a vow right there in that dark kitchen. She would never bow to them again. She would never let them treat her like dirt again. And she would rise so high that even they would have no choice but to watch. Something powerful had snapped inside her that night, and nothing would ever be the same. One early morning, before the sun even rose, Ayla made her decision. She quietly packed a small bag, not with gold, not with jewels, but with the only things she had left, a few clothes and her name. She had no money in her pocket, no family around to help, and no friend brave enough to stand with her against Koa's powerful family. But Ayla's heart was stronger than ever. With her head held high, she walked out of the grand mansion where she had known only pain. The guards at the gate looked at her with surprise, but she didn't stop. She didn't look back. Her feet were tired, but her spirit was burning bright. With nowhere to go, Ayla found shelter at a small women's center in the city. It wasn't fancy. The rooms were small, the beds were hard, and she shared space with other women who had their own sad stories. But for Ayla, it felt like freedom. No one here called her unclean. No one here pushed her away. For the first time in a long time, she could sleep without fear of being insulted. The next morning, she woke up and decided she wouldn't waste another day crying. She asked around and found a job at a little local bakery. The pay was small, but the owner was kind and treated her like a human being, something she hadn't felt in years. Every day, Ayla worked hard. She baked bread, cleaned the shop, and served customers with a smile. Her hands, once soft, became rough from kneading dough, but she didn't mind. With every loaf she made, she felt herself getting stronger. Her confidence grew. She started learning new baking skills, watching videos at night on a borrowed phone. Soon, customers started asking for the bread Ayla made specially, soft, fresh, and full of love. The bakery owner noticed and gave her more responsibility. Little by little, Ayla saved some money. Instead of spending it, she dreamed bigger. She imagined having her own bakery one day, where no one would call her unworthy again, where people would stand in line just to taste what she created. Her past pain became her fuel. While the family who once mocked her thought she was broken and gone, Ayla was quietly rising. Step by step, she was building something powerful, not just a career, but an empire built on her name and her hard work. She started baking special cakes on the side and selling them. Word spread fast. More people wanted Ayla's cakes. The woman they had shamed, the woman they said was nothing, was slowly becoming somebody important. She didn't need their mansion. She didn't need their gold plates. Ayla had walked out with nothing but her name, and now that name was starting to shine brighter than ever before. 2 years passed, and the woman they once laughed at was now the woman everyone talked about. Ayla's little bakery which started with just her and a few loaves of bread, had grown bigger than anyone could imagine. People loved her cakes, her bread, and her special pastries. But it wasn't just the food. They loved her story. They loved how she turned her pain into power. Soon, customers were coming from faraway cities just to visit her shop. And Ayla didn't stop there. She opened another bakery, then another, and another. Before long, her chain, called Ayla's Hearth, was opening shops in every big city in the country. But Ayla's dream wasn't only about selling bread. She wanted to help women who had suffered like her. So she made a rule. Every shop she opened would give jobs to women from shelters, women who had been abused and abandoned, just like she had once been. And people loved her even more for that. News reporters started coming to interview her. They called her the woman who rose from shame to shine. Her face appeared on magazine covers. TV shows invited her to tell her story. Her name, which her husband's family once dragged through the mud, had now become a symbol of strength and courage. Even the same town that once gossiped about her, whispering that she was dirty and unworthy, now cheered for her success. The same people who had looked down on her now lined up outside her bakery, hoping to catch a glimpse of her or take a photo with her. Mothers told their daughters about Ayla's story, saying, "Look at her. If she can rise, so can you." Schools invited her to speak to young girls. Business leaders praised her as an inspiration. And while Ayla smiled for the cameras and thanked her customers, deep inside, she remembered every cruel word, every insult, every tear she had shed in silence. But now, those painful memories didn't make her weak. They made her stronger, because she had turned them into fuel that built an empire. She was no longer the woman eating alone on a plastic plate. She was the founder of a national chain, the hero of many broken women, and the pride of a nation. Every day, her success grew bigger. New shops opened, more women got jobs, and Ayla's name shone brighter than gold. The world had changed its tune. The tables had truly turned. The woman they once mocked had become the woman they now admired, respected, and celebrated. As Ayla's name grew bigger and her business became a shining success, things started to fall apart for her in-laws. The same family who once called her unworthy was now facing shame of their own. Rumors spread that their big company was losing money. Scandals popped up in newspapers, exposing their dirty secrets. Business partners turned their backs on them, and banks started calling in debts they could no longer pay. One by one, their golden walls began to crumble, and their proud name became a joke in the same town where they once walked tall. It wasn't long before they showed up at Ayla's door, the same door they once wouldn't even let her knock on. Her mother-in-law, the woman who had sneered and called her dirty, now stood before her with fake tears and shaky hands. Her father-in-law, once full of pride, looked small and desperate, and Koa, the husband who had once looked away in silence, now looked her straight in the eye, but with shame written all over his face. They begged her for help, saying they had always loved her, saying they made mistakes and wanted to make things right. Ayla stood there, listening quietly, her heart pounding. For a moment, the old pain rose inside her. The nights she cried, the insults she swallowed, the shame they forced her to carry. But then she remembered how far she had come. She looked at them, her eyes filled with tears. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of strength. With a calm but firm voice, Ayla said, "Do you remember those separate plates? The ones you gave me while you dined like royalty? That was the day you showed me I didn't belong. And today I show you I no longer need to." Her words hit them like a storm. They fell to their knees, still begging, still hoping she would throw them a little help. But Ayla, with her head held high, turned away. She had no more space in her life for those who had tried to break her. The woman they once mocked had become too strong to fall for their fake love now. As she walked back into her beautiful bakery, where laughter and warmth filled the air, she felt a peace she had never known before. She had not only risen, she had won, and the world watched, inspired by the woman who turned tears into triumph and pain into power. Ayla's story spread even more, as people everywhere cheered for the woman who chose dignity over revenge and strength over bitterness. And her in-laws? They were left in the same silence they once gave her, but this time it was forever. Ayla stood tall on the bright stage, the lights shining down on her like a crown. Thousands of people sat before her, clapping and cheering. But in that moment, she thought of every woman who had ever felt small, unwanted or broken, just like she once did. Holding the award tightly in her hand, she smiled, but it wasn't just any smile. It was the smile of someone who had walked through fire and come out shining. She took a deep breath, and then her voice rang out strong and clear across the hall. "They tried to isolate me," she said, her words touching every heart in the room. "They made me eat alone. They told me I wasn't good enough. But I didn't let their cruelty end my story. I built my own table. And now," she paused, her eyes shining with tears, "the world dines with me." The crowd erupted into cheers, some people standing up, clapping with tears in their eyes. Cameras flashed as her speech spread like wildfire across the internet. In just hours, her words were everywhere, on phones, on TV, in newspapers. Women from all over the world shared her message, saying they finally felt seen, finally felt strong. Ayla's story became more than just a success tale. It became a movement, a light for those still trapped in dark places. Backstage, reporters rushed to get her words. Young girls reached out to hug her, and older women thanked her for giving them hope. Ayla felt her heart swell with pride. The same woman who was once pushed aside, laughed at, and shamed had now become unstoppable. Her bakery chain grew even bigger. Her face appeared on even more magazines. But more than fame, it was the fire she lit in others that meant the most to her. Her message kept echoing to every woman who had ever been treated as less. You are not less. You are more powerful than you know. Ayla proved that no matter how deep the pain, no matter how heavy the shame, you can rise. And when you do, you shine so bright that even those who once looked down on you have no choice but to watch in silence.